That was another reminder that despite the turmoil in today's world, we can find common ground. Ladies and gentlemen, as for the vote in the United Kingdom yesterday and the result known today, I have never been more convinced that when we work together, we are stronger. That's the key to a better world and is in our hands. I'm here today to talk about just that, building a better, more sustainable world together. And I'm here to ask for your help. This is a gun, so I have come with a pitch. I know all of you have tremendous power to shape opinions. You are master storytellers. And I want you to help us to create the biggest campaign ever for humanity. What do I mean? As Ms. Badawi said last September, all the leaders of 193 member states of the United Nations came to the United Nations and adopted 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with 17 Sustainable Development Goals. These are the most ambitious and far-reaching visions and blueprints to make this world much better and leaving no one behind. It is quite simply the biggest anti-poverty pro-planet action ever adopted by the United Nations. That means if we implement by 2030 all these 17 goals, then all 7 billion people and this planet Earth will be put forward toward sustainable, environmentally and sustainable future where nobody will be left behind. And it is an agenda for everyone, everywhere. If I had to give it a tagline, it is this: we are the first generation that can end global poverty, and we are the last generation that can address climate change before it is too late, before we may have to regret. I know all of you can help the world make these ambitious goals a reality. Here are 3 reasons why. The first, none of the SDGs can be achieved by anyone else or any government, any organization. However one nation may be powerful and resourceful, however one may be very talented, nobody, no country can do it alone. That means we need business community, we need civil society, we need academia, we need the private sector, we need everyone, including yourselves. And everyone has a stake in its success. It means everyone's hand must be on deck. Corporate social responsibility, known as CSR, is important, but we need to go further. Sometimes CSR is seen as a feel-good, optional approach. The SDGs touch every aspect of our life, your business, and of your client's reality. They echo what consumers demand, and they reflect what shareholders want, and they will instill pride in your employees. We need your help to make sure the SDGs are the business of all business, and SDGs are the business of all the people. Second, that leads me to my second point. The SDGs are the people's goals. They are the result of broad-based consultations around the world. When we initiated this one, we reached out through UN communication system, web system, at least 8 million people, covering all spectrums of people. We asked What kind of a world do you want? Please reply us. We have received millions of replies from young people, women, and vulnerable group of people, business, and government leaders. And we compiled and we negotiated and analyzed and negotiated among member states for 2 years at least. That's the result of these 17 SDG goals. We particularly asked young people, and we also asked our women. You have some of the greatest young talents in your ranks, as we saw in this week's Young Lions competition. We must also recognize the goals will not be achieved unless everyone working for them sees the agenda through the eyes, minds, and hearts of women. We have to use most unutilized talent and potentiality of women. Half the sky is women, and mostly their talents and potential have not been fully utilized. If we use all the women on board, we can double the productivity of our world. Third, we need you to help us find the best ways to tell the story. Not all people know what are the SDGs, what are the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Now I'm asking you to use all your creativity, ingenuity, innovation, and power of persuasion. You are the people whose innovation and creativity are second to none. Help us transform a complex and abstract agenda into a personal, emotional, and concrete, workable solutions. And make your own story. This challenge is not a favor for a charity or one-off campaign or fundraising for a non-profit. My call to you today is to be a part of something bigger. It requires a serious 15-year-long partnership for humanity with the United Nations and among United Nations, government, civil society, business communities, philanthropists. There is perhaps no brand with a more important purpose in the world than the SDG wing. You know, Olympic wings with the 5 wings. They stand for highest standard in sports. This SDG wings stands for the highest standard in social commitment, human well-being, and global solidarity. In the short term, we want the 2030 Agenda to be known by 2 billion people. We want to mobilize at least 1 million people as change agents. You are part of this 1 million people. Help us reach far and wide. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no limit to the power of people to make a difference when they join forces for the global good. That isn't just wishful thinking. It's my life. As you know, I'm coming from Korea. Young people know Korea as the home of Samsung, K-pop, or Gangnam Style. But the world, the Korea when I was living was quite different. I grew up in a different Korea that was totally ravaged by the Korean War in 1950. I was 6 years old. My family and I had to flee into safer mountainside, as many Syrian refugees are coming to European countries. I watched my village burn down behind us. We came back after the war. We came back to rubble. There were no homes, no schools, no hospitals, even the limited infrastructures were all destroyed. I studied under the shade of trees because there were no classrooms. There was no textbook. United Nations came immediately after this war broke out. They provided us with the textbooks, food, clothes, and security. The UN flag was our beacon of hope. UN was lifeline. I learned that solidarity means the difference between despair and hope. But these days, whenever I traveled around the world, whenever I was meeting refugees and migrants and sick people and oppressed people, I used to tell them always, just do not despair. The United Nations will be with you, as UN was with me 65 years ago. Compassion requires reaching across boundaries. I have tried to do this as a Secretary General of the United Nations. For example, when I was growing up, no one talked about discrimination based on sexual orientation. But I learned to speak out because lives are at stake. Now I proudly wave rainbow flag. We have to transcend differences for the greater good. A big part of advertising and business is defining your competitor and battling them. But it is equally about finding your partners and working with them. We have some ultra competitors. We need to be together. Poverty, injustice, and inequality. And I'm proud to say that today the communications industry is taking a historic, first of its kind step to do just that. It began with a challenge laid down at last year's Cannes debate by Sir Martin Sorrell. He said, I quote, "Can we in our industry put aside our differences to work together to address biggest challenges facing our planet and humanity?" 1 year later, the 6 biggest communications businesses in the world have risen to what some may have said was an impossible test. It is called Common Ground, and it has been developed by Dentsu, Havas, IPG, Omnicom, Publicis, and WPP. Together, they have agreed to put their differences aside in support of a joint, unique, and exciting initiative to advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It is both an example and challenge to all of us to find our common ground for the common good. To tell you more about it, I would like to welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Yannick Bolloré, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Havas, Mr. Michael Roth, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of IPG, Mr. John Wren, President and Chief Executive Officer of Omnicom, Mr. Maurice Levy, Chairman and CEO of Publicis Group, and Sir Martin Sorrell, Founder and CEO of WPP. I thank you for your commitment and engagement and attention. Ladies and gentlemen, let's work together to make this world better for all, where all the people can live with human dignity. That's a strong commitment and vision of this SDGs 2030. By 2030, I make sure that everybody will be much happier, more prosperous. This planet Earth will be environmentally sustainable with the climate change addressed. I thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Secretary General, thank you very much indeed for getting us off to such a rousing start. We salute your passion commitment and ambitions for these very important goals. And just very quickly, before I turn to the CEO, Secretary General, you've obviously got the titans of the marketing, advertising and communications industry globally with you here. So just perhaps tell us a little bit more how you feel that the communications industry, particularly in the business sector, can help in promoting the SDGs. How can these gentlemen and their female colleagues as well in their organisations help, communicate globally the SDGs, promote them?
Thank you. Again, I have a lot to tell, but time was very much limited, so this is a good opportunity. I'm extremely honored to sit with the czars of communication world. It's rare, however, my job is important. I meet all different group of people, starting from some famous Hollywood actors, actresses, and president or prime ministers and ministers. They are usually some customers, but never in the past. I'm sitting with you. The main purpose of my coming here is to make some plainly clear that SDG is for your SDGs. And among yourselves, if we can use talent and innovation, innovative and creativity power of these big gentlemen, then I think that we can make it much, much faster. It's important that when leaders have adopted this vision, it should be translated into action. This is the first year. Then this SDGs, which have been negotiated, and it's a little bit complicated for just the common citizens to understand. So I'd like to make you a nice story, which will be easily understood by all the people, starting from elementary school children to highest senior officials for government and business communities. You have the resources. I have appointed some advocates, global advocates for sustainable development goals, including some royalties, Her Majesties of Denmark and Brussels, Belgium, and there are many prime ministers and ministers. But now I'd like to ask you to play as a global advocate and the great master storytellers. It's complicated, 17 goals, we have 169 targets, but they are sometimes very specific and very technical, very scientific, so please make these stories easier to understand for all people. And you should know that I'm not asking you for any charity, any unconditional support, because it involves your business too. It involves your business. Normally, this should be done by the government. That's the normal perception, but it has very serious implications and work to do with the business communities and even civil society and just the private citizens. So you can be all part of this very important process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary General.